Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum coming to you, and I'm very happy to be here on this beautiful day in Santa Cruz. My subject today is the root cause of chronic disease. It may not be what you think. So, right now we are at a pivotal point in our history in the United States, healthcare wise. There's a lot of things started in the early 1900s that has been driving healthcare down this particular path all this time. And what's happened is the United States has gotten sicker and sicker and sicker, as well as the world, following along in the footsteps of the forefathers of modern medicine that have actually started this debacle. And it is a debacle. However, depends on what side of the debacle you're on. You know, right now, one of the biggest industries in the world is the healthcare industry, especially the United States. $4.3 trillion. $4.3 trillion is spent on medicine in the United States every year. 4.3 trillion, and they say 70% of that or more is spent on, that's like 3 trillion, is spent on symptom management. So if you had a business that could drive chronic reoccurring income time and time again in the tune of $3 trillion year after year after year, what would be the benefits of improving the health of the individual so that they don't need to take the medications that they're dishing out? Now, one of the things that's really important here is it's not just the money that's being made. It's what's happening to the lives of the people we love, what's happening to the lives of the people, our friends, our family, or ourselves. In the last several years, I've seen quite a great increase in deaths of patients that I haven't seen in the time I've been in practice, 35 years. A lot more morbidities and morbidities, meaning that people are having so many chronic diseases all piled up on one another that the medication they're taking for one might be affecting the effects of the other medication they're taking, and they're to try to combat this. And the chemistry involved to try to mitigate symptoms is not only unimaginably difficult, but it's also imaginably very expensive to render. Just think about it, $3 trillion in symptom covering medications in the United States alone. So I want to go into what is the root cause of chronic disease, because we are suffering from chronic disease right now. Well, it was in University of Michigan put out an article prior to 2020 saying that by the year 2020, 80% of Americans will be suffering from multiple chronic disease. Multiple, 2, 3, 4. What's multiple? Not just one or two, it's multiple. And I see this in my patients. Luckily, a lot of the patients that come into my office, sometimes we're their last hope. Sometimes they've already been on a path and we're helping them to the next level. And by the way, my name is Dr. Duncan McCollum. One of my patients came in and said that she'd heard me on the radio before and then couldn't remember my name. And then she heard me again and goes, please say your name more so we can find you. So I'm in Capitola by where Trader Joe's is, farther down towards, I'm in between Trader Joe's and FedEx, okay, closer to FedEx. But we are so busy. My office is so busy, but we always have room for one more, trying to help people help their health, help their lives. One gentleman I was talking to today, his wife had been a patient probably 4 years, 5 years, avid golfer, and she's got a scoliosis looks worse than Lombard Street, if you ever been down that in San Francisco. And for several years, her husband would come in with her and just sit in the waiting room as we adjusted her. And I talked to him a few times and, he was cordial. Well, finally, he came in And he's a very conservative looking fellow, and he's, in his 60s. So, he knew a thing or two about a thing or two. And I found him in my consult room one day and he goes, "Well, I'm here." And I go, "Yeah, it's nice to see you. What can I do for you?" He goes, "Well, I've had terrible back pain, chronic back pain that I've had for years." And I go, think to myself, "Okay, well, I'm wondering why you haven't come in sooner." And he said, "I've tried everything out there and I've seen my wife's spine because I was here when you showed us her x-rays, and that scoliosis is unbelievable. And she golfs every day and she's never in pain." And I thought, if you can do that for my wife, who was in terrible pain when we brought her in, maybe you could help me. So, it was interesting. So we did an evaluation, found out how long this guy'd been in pain and what he'd tried. And I took an x-ray of his low back or his full spine, and he had one of the bones in his back was slipped forward a little over a third of the way. It's got a funny name called a spondylolisthesis. Spondy means bone, and the thesis says slippage. But it's like kind of guillotining the nerves going from the head down the center of the spine to his tailbone. Then you have this bone slipping forward. It was putting pressure on his spine. So we started a course of care with him. And along the way, I talked to him today and he was telling me, "Well, I'm only sleeping 3 hours a night." And I go, "Really? What's going on?" "Well, I'm on this new breathing machine. They took a study and I have to wear this thing. I hate wearing it. Um, but I have to do this because I have an autoimmune condition in my body." I'm going, "Really?" So autoimmune means your body's fighting itself. And autoimmune, auto is self, immune mean it's attacking. It doesn't know what to attack, so it attacks you. And so I asked him about it. And then I mentioned to him that the only reason a body's got an autoimmune system is because the immune system's confused. And so it's trying to attack the host rather than the toxins in the body. So when you have an autoimmune condition going on, the body being confused uh, is the result of a toxic buildup in the body. It could be heavy metals coming down 4 generations through mom's umbilical blood. Lots of aluminum in the air right now from the plane exhaust. They put aluminum in the gas in the last few years because of airplanes, because it gets them better mileage. A lot of cadmium in there, bromine or beryllium, mercury, lead. All this stuff is just falling down the sky onto our food, our water, into the gardens around us. And this stuff is getting in our body and it's causing the body to break down. Our bodies don't have the ability to detoxify these elements quick enough. So the liver, which is your number one detoxifying organ in your body, gets plugged. And when it gets plugged, it can no longer do its one of 5,000 plus, 500 plus jobs we know it does, but the one is cleaning the blood so it can circulate clean new oxygen and nutrients to the 75 trillion cells in the body. And then your lymphatics can gather up the toxic waste from the production of energy in those 75 trillion cells and bring that back to the blood supply so it can be filtered out through the liver and the kidneys and then also through sweat and lungs. Okay. So this is how the body should typically work. It's like a delivery system. If you have, all these kids now have food delivered to the house, they don't even have to cook it or go get it. And then when you're done eating it, you know, it gets right into the garbage and the garbage comes pick it up. And as long as you're efficient, you have a clean house, a full stomach, and no garbage laying around. That's ideal. So, but the problem is a lot of the I shouldn't pick on kids. A lot of the people forget to take the garbage out, plates stack up, there's stuff on the floor in the house, the towels need to be washed, the dishes need to be done, and it's a mess. So the house isn't clean. It's too hard to cook because the dishes are full of the sink's full of dishes. So this is kind of a scenario. Imagine your body. When you put food stuff in your gullet, in your mouth, you start to chew, saliva gets in there, starts to break down the starches, it gets into your stomach, acids and enzymes get introduced to start to create a ball of mush that gets into your small intestine where calcium is absorbed out, pushed down to your large intestine where all the phytonutrients, the amino acids, the fatty acids, the vitamins and minerals are pulled out of your digestive system, your gut, where you eliminate from. It's pulling the good stuff out. And then that goes through this incredible system that makes vitamins, minerals, or excuse me, amino acids, fatty acids, nucleotides, hormones. All these things are made by what you've consumed and what's been done through your digestive tract to make these incredible nutrients to get into the brain, into the body, and keep those 75 trillion cells alive. So that's what you want to have happen. So what's the problem? Why are we sick? Why are we the sickest country in the industrialized world? Glad you asked. We're only 4% of the population of the earth. There's 96 other people outside of our country, 96% of the people. We take, by the way, depending on the article you read, 50 to 70% of all the pharmaceuticals made in the world. No wonder we spend $4.3 trillion on healthcare in this system in our country. And we know that 30% or 3 trillion of, 3 trillion of that go to paying for symptom relief. So what gives? What's the problem? Well, it's kind of a long story, but not really if you think about it. I was at a seminar in Salt Lake City this weekend with a bunch of medical doctors, chiropractors, dentists, herbalists, neurologists, and we were all looking at the power of light in healing. E equals MC squared, and all of the frequencies of visible light spectrum, and how visible light, just like it creates vitamin D in your skin or turns chlorophyll onto the leaves of trees, how it creates light or creates life, and very important substances like vitamin D and chlorophyll to keep the organism alive. Well, these spectrum of light that I've talked about before, it's not necessarily the subject of today's talk, but they work with the tissue in our body, increase the energy so the body has enough energy to heal. When your body's worn down, it has a hard time healing. Visible light lasers, and we have green, violet, and red in our office. Those increase the energy of the cells so the body can heal well. But anyway, one of the guys was talking about one of his patients, or no, one of the chiropractors that he's known for years. And the guy practiced when he was practicing somewhere up in, I think, Wyoming or something. And this chiropractor, this doctor was down in Arizona, and he runs into this guy. He's 96 years old. And he says he doesn't look anywhere near 96. And he talked to him, goes, so, Dr. Joe, what are you doing down here? Goes, I'm going on a 100-mile bike ride. What? A 100-mile bike ride? And he goes, yeah, we do it every year. And so Dr. Dan says to this guy, he goes, well, you're 90 plus years old. He goes, what's your secret? He goes, well, you know what? When I was a kid in the 1940s, all our food was organic. We didn't have GMO food. We didn't have all these poisons on our foods. The food was grown on mom and pop's farms, and it was organic food, and it was filled with so much more nutrients than we could hope for in our food these days. And he said, it was kind of an interesting story because we've all known people that lived long, healthy lives and never got sick. And then the ones that are young kids that have autoimmune disease or chronic disease or are dying right now. We have kids dying of heart attacks and cancers in their 20s and 30s, colon cancer. It's supposed to be up in the 50s and 60s when you get that. And So what is causing all this? What's the cause of this chronic disease? There's a pretty simple explanation for it, and it is called chronic inflammation. Huh? So inflammation gums up the works in your body. When you have nice, clean blood flowing through a healthy body with healthy cell walls, the energy producing substances in there in the cells, the mitochondria, it's called, can take in a sugar molecule in the way of glucose, make fuel out of it really efficiently, and get the exhaust out of the cell into the lymphatics and out of the body in a heartbeat. It's like a really fine-tuned Porsche running down the road. And that is a very cool thing. But when you don't change the oil in that car for a while and you never wash it, and maybe you have a dog in the car, and over the years, all the dog dander's in the car, so it's very allergenic. The oil's starting to get really thick and not going through the engine very well. The car's so dusty that you can't even see out of the windshield wipers. You're driving this thing down, and pretty soon smoke starts to come out of the back because the oil's so bad. And then you haven't checked the brakes or in the transmission, everything starts to go wrong. It's just because nobody knew or cared to maintain that car. The same thing goes with our bodies. We have to learn how to care and maintain our body, but you also wouldn't put bad gas in that car and you wouldn't put cheap oil in that car. And you would make sure that you're keeping it clean of things that would cause disease. You're going to vacuum the car so the dog dander doesn't get in there and cause all these allergies and all these different types of things. So when in the body, when we're not able to eliminate environmental toxins that we're exposed to every day, 250 billion tons of toxins dumped on the planet every year, when we're not able to eliminate that stuff, then our body, and we can't because our livers get plugged. I'll explain that a little bit in a minute. But when we can't do that, our body gets so sick that it starts smoking and sputtering, and then the systems don't work. Your hormones don't work. The brain gets called something called the blood-brain barrier starts to get opened up and bad substances get into your brain, turning on bad genes in the different cells of the body, causing chronic autoimmune disease. I've already talked about that. Your body can't get rid of the toxins. Toxins get embedded in the body. Your immune system doesn't know what's a body and what's a toxin, so it goes after the whole ball of wax. And then your energy level just gets drained and drained and drained like a car battery you're trying to start, and it just isn't turning the car over. It's going, One day you're out of electricity, meaning your nervous system and your cells are no longer working, and you're pushing up daisies. So there is so much you can do about it. And right now is the perfect time to do it. More is known about how to clean up a toxic body, turn around chronic inflammation, help the cells work correctly, reestablish proper communication, improve the fuel you're putting into the vehicle, being your body. So as you're reestablishing proper communication via the brain and the nervous system, which I do as a chiropractor, all chiropractors do is look for interruptions in the communication and find that and restore it. We've been doing that since 1895. And, somewhere in 1913, somebody came along in the name of Rockefeller and basically sabotaged the health of a nation and then a world. And it's getting exposed now. And if you listen to the news, you're going to hear more and more about it if everything goes right. There are people out there that know the truth, but there's a lot of opposition because a lot of money is being made by keeping us sick. So, but that's on a global story or a national story. But when we're talking about you as an individual, we can work with you and help you learn how to fish. So I'm not going to give you a fish. I want you to teach you how to fish. And by that, once you know the workings of your body and how to keep it healthy, it's a lot easier for you to make that happen. So we're doing a 30-day challenge. It already started Monday. It's going to be going through this month. It's probably not too late to jump on if you want. You can go to info@mccollumwellness.com and just say, hey, I want in. We can send you the video from Monday, sign you up for the course, and you can start to learn how to do that. We'll be doing it another time, but I would get into it quickly if you want to. Now, you can try to do this yourself. I wouldn't try to rebuild a $70,000 Porsche by myself, though. Then that's only got a finite amount of parts. Your body's only got 75 trillion parts. Those are just the cells, let alone that each one of those cells does 60 million things a minute, all controlled by the brain. So if you could handle a computing organism that has 75 trillion components, and each component is doing 60 million functions a minute, all controlled by a central communication system, you're pretty bad. It's a pretty cool thing to be able to do. But all right, so I digress. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum, Chiropractic in Capitola, a chiropractor. I've been in practice 36 years now, and I've always been studying the nutrition, various ways to heal. I've got use sound in my office, light in my office, hands in my office, gentle adjusting tools in my office. Um, there's so much stuff that because of the need, because of the need, I've had to learn to bring in more modalities to help people. Where in the old days, a chiropractic adjustment could do a lot, but because of the chronic inflammation in the body, the toxicity in the body, the masking of symptoms for so long that systems are damaged and or scar tissues build up to a point where it's a lot more difficult to help people. But if there's a will, there's a way, right? So what I'm wanting to really get across to you today is, what was the source of chronic disease, why our bodies haven't been able to heal on their own. A lot of us are getting by pretty good until we aren't, right? It's pretty good. I get by, once I get and take a few steps, I'm good. But about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I got to sit down for a little while. Or, I used to get up and think that I'm going to conquer the day, but now I have a hard time even getting to the kitchen table because of my energy or my body function, or my nervous system or my digestive system so bad, I can't even put good foods in my body and it craves terrible sweets. This is a broken system, and systems can be repaired. What we do in our office, we don't treat disease. We don't, what we do is we help reestablish proper functioning body parts. Okay. So subluxation is called sub, that means less than. Luxation means a condition of light. So subluxation is a lesser condition of light. In the old days, they used to think that there was light flying around the body, and that's what got you healthy. And then when the light went out, it was a sinister time, and that's when you got sick and died. This is back in Galen's days, right? And before they knew that you had a circulatory system and such, until guys were, hiding in the middle of the night, like Leonardo da Vinci and these guys looking at the inside of bodies and realizing what we were made of. So now the understanding is that you have a blood system, you have a nervous system, you have digestive, you have a circulatory, well, that's the blood system, a respiratory system, 14 different systems in your body. And each one of those 14 systems needs to work as close to 100% as it can. If you have 13 of them working well, but one doesn't work very well, you're toast. You are a slave to that system that's not working well. And if you have two or three not working, and maybe four just kind of halfway working, you're toast. So getting an evaluation and find out where you are with each of those 14 systems in your body can help you live a much healthier life. But each one of those systems is subject to a chronic disease. It's chronic to or subject to inflammation that will make your body sick and unable to function. So we are on the coattails of the greatest potential change in healthcare in the history of the United States, if not the world. We have emergency medicine that can save lives unbelievably, where in the past people would not be able to make it. We can do that. When my appendix ruptured in 2021, I think, if I didn't have Western medicine, I'd be dead. I went to Dominican, got treated very well, was there for 5 days. They saved my life. Kind, helpful people. But if all medicine was that way, where 5 days, your condition was fixed, that would be cool, but it's not. They're maintaining your symptoms with some kind of medication that's covering up your symptoms based on the cost. It's not me, based on the fact that $4.3 trillion is spent every year on healthcare in this system. And those reports, if you Google it on PubMed or wherever you want to go, will say 70% of that is based on maintaining symptoms. So that's $7 trillion spent on covering up symptoms, not getting anybody well. So now you become a slave or dependent on supplements that are going to not get you well and not kill you. There was a guy named, well, he's still around, Dr. Jason Fung. I've interviewed him, listened to him speak. I've read his books. And he is an endocrinologist that was treating a lot of diabetic patients. And he got tired of putting them on the regular stuff and then just watching them slowly coast downhill. And he started to really take a look at what was going on and realized he could reverse diabetes. But he did make a statement. He said, if you could make a drug that didn't kill anybody, but it didn't cure them, how long would that person need to be on that drug? So you design a drug that's going to help a symptom. But if you take that drug away, the symptom's going to worsen. And especially if it's a life-threatening type of symptom, you don't want it to worsen. So you stay on that medication, but it doesn't fix you. You're going to have to continue to be on it. If it doesn't kill you, you've got a customer for life. And then Dr. Fung said, how many of those drugs do you think you could make? So maybe that's why we're spending $4.3 trillion on healthcare every year in this country. So when we take a look at what's causing chronic disease, very clear. There were covers of Time magazine back, it's been several years now, that said chronic inflammation is causing chronic disease. It's very well known. And so if you could get rid of chronic inflammation, could you help chronic disease? Does that make sense? If chronic inflammation is causing chronic disease, then eliminating or reducing chronic inflammation should help chronic disease improve. Makes sense to me. I'm not a math whiz, but less is more and more is less. So what we know, what's causing all this chronic inflammation? Why is it still there? Well, remember, the body's supposed to be a clean operating machine. Everything's supposed to be just like the delivery. They show up on your doorstep with food, you eat it, put it out, somebody takes the garbage away. You don't even have anything to wash. Everything's clean and everything's running incredibly well as long as you have enough money, right? That money in your body is energy. That's created by the healthy foods that you eat. And each cell creates its own energy. It's not depending on, foreign body for energy. Every one of those 75 trillion cells in your body's got its own power plant in there. How cool is that? All you have to do is provide healthy fuel to the outside cell wall, and it will be sucked in there in a well-working cell wall. The thing called the mitochondria will make energy out of it, and then exhaust, of course, which gets out of the cell wall, out of the body without causing bad things to happen. You don't take the garbage out in 3-4 weeks in your kitchen, it's going to start to smell and you're going to draw all kinds of bad things, flies and who knows what. If you got a dog door, the raccoons are going to come in at night. Those would be like big parasites versus the fruit flies and the regular flies. And then maybe the rats are going to show up because you left the door open and you didn't take the garbage out. Okay. That's what's happening in our body. That's what's making us sick. That's what's causing chronic inflammation, toxic buildup in the body. Okay, so What do we do about it? I'm going to turn this thing a little bit and I'm going to bring your attention to a drawing. Going to actually turn the light on here because it's getting kind of dark. But this is a drawing of a cell. So this is where the problem comes from. See if I can turn this up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so this round thing is, let's say that's a cell wall. It's 75 trillion cells in your body. And this is what's causing chronic disease. So why aren't we getting well? Because of the problem with the cell wall. Fix the cell to get well. Remember that, fix the cell to get well. So for those of you listening on the radio, or those of you watching this, just imagine a big bubble. It's like you're blowing a bubble, and that wall that floats around, that shiny thing that you see mirrors in, that's a cell wall. And it's either healthy or it's sick in any degree between. So when you first blow a bubble, it floats around. You can bounce it off the spoon, and you can even blow it and move it around. But after a while, that cell wall, or the balloon bubble, you see that membrane kind of just dissolve and then it pops. So that's an expression of a health of the cell. In your body, these cell walls are made up of oils, not trans fatty oils that you get when you eat French fries somewhere. They're healthy oils that you need to start consuming. And if you want, you can join Health Rebels. It's a private group on Facebook, and it's free to join, and there's a lot of information in there. I'm resurrecting it because I really want to help the movement of health in this country. And sometimes you need a source of something a little closer to home than Washington. So, no matter where you are on the planet, if you're wanting to get some more information, tune in. But what happens is this cell needs energy. It gets energy two ways. That is from fat, which are ketones, which is very, very rare in modern people today. The second one is glucose. Actually, glucose is the first, ketones the second. Glucose is sugar. Everything in your body breaks down to sugar except for fat. French fries break down to sugar. Broccoli breaks down to sugar. All of those carbohydrates. Now, sometimes people go, no, I don't eat carbohydrates. I had a salad. That's carbohydrate. So anything from a French fry to broccoli is a carbohydrate. Now, there's simple ones and complex ones. The complex ones are definitely better than simple. Simple ones are like potatoes, rice, corn tortillas, junk food, cakes, bread. All of that stuff you're going to want to start to minimize or eliminate that based on your health, okay? But got to see where I'm at time-wise here. So when we look at the cell wall here, we want to make sure the cell wall, you see these little squiggles around here? The cell walls are a bunch of little balloons put together, and those are all the fatty acids that are kind of linked together like a chain of pearls, if you will. That's making up the cell wall. And those pearls are touching. They're pretty tight, but they're very well lubricated. And when the substance comes along, those little pearls will move apart and let that healthy substance get into the cell, be it a vitamin, a mineral, fatty acids, amino acids. It will actually has a spot for hormones to attach to send a signal into the cell, giving directions to that cell on what it should do. It's like if you are driving down the road and you have one of those things on the dashboard that's giving you directions, you plug it in an address and it will tell you how to get to where you're going. Well, when hormones and various substances attach to the cell wall or neurotransmitters, it's giving it a roadmap. It's telling that cell what to do and where to go and how quickly to get there or how quickly to run the other way. That's survival, okay? What happens is earlier in the show, and by the way, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum coming to you and from Santa Cruz, and I just want you to know that I'm a chiropractor in Capitola. If you have questions. Sometimes people come in and go, say your name more because you just talk and we get in and out of the car and forget. But anyway, 831-459-9990. I'm a chiropractor. We do everything from, different pains in the body. We help repair damage caused by nerve interference and toxins. A lot of times people come in with things called peripheral neuropathy or low back pain or neck pain. All we do is restore proper function to the body and the body heal. And we get some pretty good results with that. And this is an example. When these cell walls, those pearls get crudded up with mud, kind of, you take these really beautiful pearls and you stick a bunch of bacon grease on them or, mud, throw them in the garden. They don't work very well. They don't pull apart very well. That's what happens when you have a toxic cell wall. So now insulin tries to open the door for sugar because insulin, you've heard of that from the pancreas, when with diabetics have this problem. You have a glucose molecule that needs to get into the cell to give it some energy so you can stay alive. That insulin would open the door, pull those two pearls apart, and let that glucose get in there, and then it would shut. Nothing else could get in. That glucose goes to the carburetor of the car, called the mitochondria, turns it into energy, and then pushes out the exhaust through other little pearls that slip apart and let that bad thing get out of the cell. So what's with the chronic inflammation? Where does this come about? Well, as you're exposed to more and more and more toxins, and actually you get heavy metals 4 generations down through your mom's umbilical blood. We'll go into that another time. We've been exposed to chemicals. We know that there's 278 chemicals found in the blood of umbilical cords of kids that haven't even been born yet in the United States. They test their umbilical blood as they're coming out of the womb, and there's 278 toxins, neurotoxins, cancer-causing agents, all these different things that are in that blood. This kid's already been exposed to it. Then we come out into the world and we play with everything in sight. We end up doing things we shouldn't. We end up getting our own heavy metals, molds, from various medications we might be subjected to, foods that we eat that are filled. You know that Cheerios, Honey Nut Cheerios, and Lucky Charms have sodium triphosphate in it. Trisodium phosphate. Trisodium phosphate. Just look at the directions or the ingredients on these boxes. I use trisodium phosphate to get the grease off of my hood in my kitchen, but I won't even use that anymore because it's so toxic. I'm not going to wipe it on a metal surface. Why would I eat it? Who'd put it in the food for us to eat? You wonder why we're so sick? Take a look at who's directing or allowing these things into our foods. Now, I believe this is going to be a huge turnover in what's going on, right? So in the meantime, your best, we'll get back to this in a sec, but before I forget, I want to say, when you're eating healthy food, it doesn't mean you're just going to become healthy. You want to eat healthy food so you don't get sicker. But now that a lot of people say, I've been eating healthy for years, why do I feel so bad? I drink all this water because you haven't gotten rid of the damage done for the 30 or 40 years prior to it when we didn't know about all the junk. And maybe you did even then. Well, you just have a weaker genetic predilection to disease. You even have to work harder to keep your body healthy. So getting back to the cell wall, when we're exposed to all these elements, garbage in, garbage out, all this stuff has to get out of our body. And I started talking about the liver early on, and the cells dump the toxins into the extracellular fluid, meaning extra means right outside of, and that builds up. It's like a little teeny stream up in the Sierras. It becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger. Pretty soon it's a river. So each of those cells is like a little teeny trickle of toxic waste that comes out of those 75 trillion cells. And then it gets into a creek, a stream, a river, an ocean, right? And all of the poisons that are your body's produced to make energy itself. We make toxics just creating energy, let alone all of the other toxins that have been stored in other body parts. gets into the bloodstream through the liver, and the liver is supposed to push it out. But it's so overburdened with these incredibly toxic um, forever chemicals, these things that make everything slippery. Those never, they're called forever chemicals for a reason. They don't go away. Then we have things like Roundup or glyphosate, same thing, that we know is a carcinogen, sprayed all over our food. In fact, a lot of the vegetables actually have been genetically modified to put a gene in the food itself so it's not hurt by glyphosate. It's immune to glyphosate. So they can spray more on it to kill the bugs, but the plant doesn't die. Well, guess what happens? The inside of our intestines start to fall apart and break apart. And this is called leaky gut syndrome. So as your liver is trying to clean your blood and then push all the toxins into your gut or your large intestine or colon, then because those one layer thick cell wall in your large intestine gets swollen, remember inflammation, and that inflammation allows big holes to be exposed between the poop in your large intestine and the cells that need to get nutrients from the large intestine. And not only do the fatty acids, amino acids, vitamin, minerals, and all that stuff come out of your garbage dump into the bloodstream to get to those 75 trillion cells, but larger particles of bad stuff get in those holes of the inflamed intestinal wall. So this is inflammation of the intestines. Chronic inflammation causes chronic disease. So what do you do with the chronic disease? You can medicate it, but if you don't fix the chronic gut problem, you're never going to get it fixed. Actually, a lot of the medications you take for the chronic disease increase the permeability of your intestine, making it a never-ending loop of worse and worse and worse type of stuff. So with these cell walls, a guy named Dr. Bruce Lipton says that cell wall is probably the smartest part of the human body, because those 75 trillion cells, you put them in a healthy environment, they'll thrive. You take them out and you put them into an unhealthy environment and the cells will start to die. You take that dying cell and put it back in a healthy environment, it will start to thrive. So you want to thrive, then you got to take your body out of the toxic environment and put it into a healthier environment and allow it to thrive. So sometimes the first thing we have to do is there's two steps. One is if you're in a boat, rowing a boat out in the middle of the ocean, there's no land in sight, so you can't jump out of the boat and swim to shore. And you're in this boat, and the boat's taking on water pretty rapidly. And you have two choices: either row as fast as you can till you find shore, bail the boat out so it doesn't sink. Actually, the first one is bail the boat out or plug the hole. Well, if you don't know where the hole is and you're trying to find the hole without bailing it, inevitably you're going to sink. So this is what happens when you're trying to figure out what's wrong with your body, but you're not handling the body getting worse and worse and worse. So sometimes the first thing you have to do is bail out the boat. And that's what we're really good at, helping fortify your body, helping you eliminate the bad stuff that getting into your body or minimize it, because we'll never get away from it completely. But as long as we can do more of the right things faster than your body's being exposed to the wrong things, your body should start to improve. It takes some work, but you will never coast into health. You can't coast downhill to a healthier body. It's going to take effort. And if you're going to put the effort in, you might as well go with things that work, they're proven to work. And I'm not asking you to trust the science. What I'm saying is help you understand how the body works so you can figure this out yourself. Now, earlier on in the show, I said, don't try to fix your Porsche by yourself. Major chronic diseases, I don't want anybody to make themselves worse by avoiding Western medicine if they're at that point that they need it. By all means, you got to go to the medical doctor, just like when my appendix ruptured. I'd be dead if I didn't go to the hospital. So it's very important that you learn when to hold them and when to fold them, when to walk away and run, when it comes to your health. Sometimes you got to run as fast as you can to save your life. Other times, you can walk, and other times you just embrace it and learn and change things along the way. So, getting back to the sinking boat, if you don't bail it out and reduce the amount of water about to sink the boat as you try to find the hole, you're likely going to sink. So, wouldn't it make more sense to bail the boat out as fast as you can to ensure it's going to float long enough for you to find the holes and plug them? So, what we do in our office, we help you do two things. When we assess what your condition is, what's causing the chronic inflammation in your body, what's causing chronic disease, and then we can, if it looks like we can help you, we'll give you our thoughts on what you can do and what we can do to help you. We only help or take on people we think we can help, but we're not curing your diseases. We're doing is helping your body become healthy again by removing what we call subluxations, less than perfect communication via the nervous system, the dietary system, the circulatory system, the digestive system, musculoskeletal system. Remember, there's 14 systems in your body. They all gotta, if we can improve, find the worst one and improve it, or some of the worst ones and improve that, as we're improving those systems, your body's going to do better. It's just simple math, right? But when we find what's making each one of those 75 trillion cells weak and sick, if we don't do something to help that, your course is set. But if we can show you and help you understand, or you might say, just tell me what to do. I don't even want to know. You just tell me what to do. And if it looks like you're willing and we can help you, then we'll guide you. But we never get in the way with the medications that your doctor wants you to be on. Now, oftentimes, as we're helping people, the medication dosage can be lowered, but we work with you and your doctor to make sure that they're helping you with that, right? So anyway, when these cells get really plugged, not only can insulin not open the door easily to get glucose in, so your pancreas has to work overtime to get all the insulin it can possibly get to push open those two little pearls to get that glucose in there. Usually it would slip right in, but now it's got to be pushed in with all the insulin your body could make. Pretty soon you don't make enough. And you go to the doctor and they say, hey, you're diabetic or pre-diabetic. Here, you need more insulin. My body's making insulin, not enough to push in that sugar through those rusty old pearls. Let's batter ram it in there. So pretty soon you have something called too much insulin in your blood. Makes sense to me. Your pancreas is dumping all it can if it doesn't give out. And right now, pancreatic cancer is when I graduated chiropractic school, it was very rare. Now it's very common. Why? Because it's right next to the liver, in my opinion. So you get all those toxins in the liver floating into the pancreas, causing pancreatic cells to mutate. Thus, you get cancer. Getting back to this insulin thing. So now you're jamming man-made insulin into the body to try to get the sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells. So now you have a big problem because you have too much insulin in your blood. And there's a couple names for it, not a big deal. One's called hyperinsulinemia. That means too much insulin in the blood. They also called it diabetes type 3. Did you know that there was a diabetes type 3? It's usually created by this process, and it is called diabetes type 3. And there's another name for it. Not very significant. It's called Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's disease is another name for hyperinsulinemia or diabetes type 3. And as you can see, it's created because everybody's neglecting the actual cell. If you neglect the 75 trillion cells and the way they function, it doesn't matter what you give a body, it's not going to get well. So the cause of chronic disease is malfunction at a cellular level. Now, that may be the malfunction is the result of chronic toxicity. That toxicity can be when you were a kid. I played with mercury when I was a kid. I had so many silver fillings in my mouth that was ridiculous. I loved playing with chemicals. I was a mechanic for 9 years, stuck my hand in solvent every night to get the grease off my hands. Well, that drove petrochemicals into my body. When I broke my back when I was 12, I was in incredible pain in the 60s, and the medical doctors never took a x-ray of me. So they gave me pain drugs, and I was living up in Berkeley in the 60s, and I listened to a song by Jefferson Airplane called White Rabbit. And, I was pretty akin to that kind of music. And they said, hey, when the pills that mother gives you don't do anything at all, go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. And I did, and I became addicted to drugs, trying to fix my back pain. And it nearly killed me, very nearly OD'd, until one day I was carried into a chiropractic office by two friends. I don't know their name anymore because it's been over 50 years. And they carried me into a chiropractic office at 20 years old. The doctor asked them to hold me up when they took an x-ray because I couldn't stand on my own. Dr. York down in Santa Cruz went into a view box, or, dark room, and it sounded like crazy in there, splashing and buckets falling over. Then he came out and he stuck an x-ray up on the view box and he pointed to my lowest bone in my back and he said, son, when did you break your back? I could clearly see that my lumbar vertebra was smashed about almost half as thick as the rest of them. And it was pancaked out like silly putty. He goes, you broke your back a long time ago. How long have you been in pain? I basically, 20 years old, burst down in tears because he found out. He was the only one who cared enough to tell me what my problem was. Then he said, I might be able to help you. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to cut to the chase. He put me on the table, said, if this doesn't work, you're going to the hospital. Did my first chiropractic adjustment, popped in my ears. I stood up on my own with new respect for the guy. I asked him what he did. He goes, I found this cause of your problem. Come back tomorrow. We'll get you out of pain. Took a long time, but now I've been in practice 36 years because I want other people to know there's hope. Your bodies are amazing. Your body knows how to heal. All we have to do is eliminate the toxins. What's in health-wise right now, it's not just what's going on with the nervous system. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum in Capitola, 831-459-9990. But it's the toxic build up in all of our brain. The blood-brain barrier in our brain gets swollen, just like the leaky gut. Chemicals get in there. That's what causes bad genes to turn on, Alzheimer's, cancer genes. All these things get turned on because they get read. The gene gets read, just like a library book you pull out and open. If you don't read the book, it won't get read, right? So we can help your body recover by helping you determine what is causing the inflammation in your body. Maybe you're up for the challenge. Give us a call, 831-459-9990. Right now is the best time to do it. We got RFK leading the way. And if you want to get in at the ground floor of being healthy, now's the time to do it. Dr. Duncan McCollum, 831-459-9990. Also, you can go to info@McCollumWellness.com, info@McCollumWellness.com. Well, thank you very much. It's been great talking at you again. And I'll be here. This place Monday again. Our office is in Capitola. Come by and say hi. Come get a bottle of gratitude, vitamin G, best vitamin on the market. And we'll talk to you next week. But in the meantime, go to Health Rebels in Facebook and ask to join Health Rebels. And that's a private group. You'll find a lot of great information in there. And we're running a real cool class through there right now, but might be a little late to join into the private part. If you get in right away, we can probably get you the videos you need to get caught up. We're teaching you a 30-day way to clean up your health. Talk to you later. Bye.